Grandma, they're going to make you sign papers tonight to take your money. I heard them practicing what to say to you, whispered my 11-year-old grandson, and his words shattered everything I thought I knew about my own family. I, a trusting grandmother who had supported them for years, sat there stunned as the pieces fell into place. The science fair celebration, the expensive dinner, the coordinated smiles, it had all been a trap. But what they didn't know was that while they were planning to steal my independence, I was already 10 steps ahead. What I discovered about their scheme went deeper than I ever imagined. What I did next turned their own plan against them in a way that left everyone speechless. They thought they were dealing with a confused old woman. They had no idea what they'd just started. Before we continue, please leave a comment telling us where you're watching from and subscribe to Never Too Old channel. We're creating a community of incredible women who know that our best chapters can happen at any age. Now, back to the story. The phone rang at exactly 7:22 a.m. on a Thursday morning. I know because I was staring at my kitchen clock, waiting for my second cup of coffee to finish brewing. 4 years of living alone, and I still made enough coffee for 2 people. Old habits. Mom, you're going to love this. Tom's voice had that forced excitement I remembered from when he was 12 and trying to convince me he hadn't broken Mrs. Peterson's window with his baseball. I settled into my chair at the kitchen table, the same spot where Frank and I had shared breakfast for 32 years. Love what, honey? Lucas won second place in the district science fair. His solar-powered water filtration system beat out 60 other kids. That's wonderful. And it was. My grandson had been working on that project for weeks, calling me with updates about pump mechanisms and filter materials. He must be so proud. He is. But here's the thing. Tom's voice got that rushed quality it always had when he was building up to something. The awards assembly is tonight at 7, and Lucas specifically asked if Grandma Helen could come. I smiled, despite the odd feeling creeping up my spine. Lucas never had to ask twice for my attendance at anything. Of course I'll be there. When have I ever missed one of his school assemblies? Right, exactly. But Jessica thought maybe afterward, since it's such a special occasion, you could come back to our place. We could order pizza, celebrate properly, make it a real family night. There it was. The slight hesitation before Jessica thought. The overemphasis on real family night. 30 years of running Richardson's family restaurants had taught me when someone was trying to sell me something. Tom was building up to a pitch he wasn't comfortable making. That sounds lovely, I said, keeping my tone light. Just Lucas's celebration? Well, yes, mostly, though Jessica and I have been meaning to talk to you about some family planning stuff. Nothing urgent, just some ideas about how we can all help each other out better. Family planning. Help each other out. The euphemisms people used when they wanted something but couldn't say it directly. I'd heard plenty of those during my restaurant days, usually right before someone asked for a loan they couldn't repay. What kind of help? I asked. Oh, you know, just brainstorming. Jessica's been reading about families staying more connected, making sure everyone's taken care of as we all get older, that sort of thing. I walked to my kitchen window, phone pressed to my ear, and looked out at the backyard Frank and I had landscaped together. The roses he'd planted were blooming again this spring, just like every year since he died. Reliable, predictable, honest. Unlike this conversation. Mom, you still there? I'm here, Tom. Just thinking about what to wear to Lucas's big night. Great. So you'll come to dinner afterward? Jessica's really looking forward to talking with you. Jessica, who usually spent family gatherings checking her phone and making comments about how big the house was for just one person. Jessica, who had started every conversation with me in the past year by mentioning someone's elderly parent who'd moved into assisted living and seemed so much happier with less responsibility. I'll be there, I said. Wouldn't miss celebrating my grandson's achievement. After I hung up, I sat in my quiet kitchen and tried to figure out why a perfectly normal invitation felt like a business proposition. Maybe I was being paranoid, maybe Jessica genuinely wanted to improve family relationships, but in 43 years of marriage and 30 years of business, I'd learned to trust my instincts. And right now, my instincts were telling me that tonight's family planning conversation had been planned for longer than Lucas's science fair celebration. I poured my second cup of coffee and made a mental note to pay attention to exactly what Jessica wanted to discuss. Some conversations that started with family planning ended with what's best for everyone. And in my experience, when people started talking about what was best for everyone, they usually meant what was best for them. Jefferson Elementary's multi-purpose room smelled like industrial disinfectant and the lingering traces of lunch from earlier that day. I arrived 15 minutes early, like I always did for Lucas's events, and found a seat in the third row where I could see him clearly. The room filled up quickly with parents holding phones ready to record everything. I kept mine in my purse. Some moments were better experienced than documented. Tom and Jessica arrived exactly at 7, scanning the room until they spotted me. Jessica's smile looked different tonight, brighter, more deliberate. She wore the burgundy dress she saved for occasions when she wanted to make a good impression. "Helen, you look wonderful," she said, settling beside me with unusual enthusiasm. "That color is perfect on you." Since when did Jessica comment on my clothes? In 12 years of marriage to my son, she'd never once mentioned what I was wearing, but tonight she was studying me like I was wearing something particularly interesting instead of my usual Thursday cardigan. Tom sat on my other side, fidgeting with his tie. "Great turnout, huh? Lucas is going to be so excited to see you here." Where else would I be? I kept my voice warm, but I was watching both of them from the corner of my eye. They kept glancing at each other, quick little looks that felt coordinated. The principal stepped up to the microphone and began calling names. When Lucas walked across the stage to accept his certificate, my heart swelled with genuine pride. His grin was enormous, and he waved directly at me from the stage. "He's gotten so tall," Jessica murmured. "Growing up so fast. It makes you think about the future, doesn't it? How quickly things change." An odd comment for a proud mother moment, but I nodded politely. "He's becoming quite the young scientist." "Exactly," Tom jumped in, "which is why Jessica and I have been talking about making sure he has every advantage. The best schools, college planning, all of that. It takes resources." Resources. Another euphemism. I was collecting quite a few tonight. After the ceremony, Lucas bounded over to us, his certificate clutched in both hands. "Grandma, did you see? Mr. Harrison said my filtration system could actually help people in places where they don't have clean water." "I'm so proud of you," I said, pulling him into a hug. "Your grandfather would have been amazed by what you built." For just a moment, Lucas's expression shifted. Something flickered across his face. Worry, maybe guilt. But Jessica's hand landed on his shoulder immediately. "Lucas, why don't you go find your teacher and thank him? Grandma Helen is coming to our house for a celebration dinner." The boy looked between his parents and me, then nodded slowly. "Okay, I'll meet you by the car." As he walked away, I noticed his shoulders seemed tense for a kid who'd just won a major award. But before I could think too much about it, Jessica was talking again. "We thought we'd order from that pizza place you like, Helen. Make it special. And it'll give us a chance to really talk about those family ideas I mentioned to Tom." She kept touching my arm while she spoke, the same way our best waitresses used to touch customers' arms when they wanted bigger tips. The comparison bothered me more than it should have. "That sounds lovely," I said, "though I hope I'm not keeping you from your usual Thursday evening routine." Tom laughed too loudly. "What routine? We cleared the whole evening just for this, didn't we, Jess?" Jessica nodded eagerly. "Absolutely. Tonight is all about family, about making sure we're all looking out for each other." Looking out for each other? As we walked toward the parking lot, I found myself counting euphemisms. Tom and Jessica were working hard to make something sound appealing without actually saying what it was. I had a name for that kind of sales technique: the soft sell. And in my experience, people only used the soft sell when they knew you wouldn't like the hard truth. Tom and Jessica's house always felt too big for 3 people. Jessica had insisted on the 4-bedroom colonial when they bought it 8 years ago, claiming they needed space for Lucas to grow and room for guests. What they really needed was help with the mortgage payments, which I'd been quietly providing for the past 3 years. "Make yourself comfortable, Helen," Jessica called from the kitchen. "I'm just putting in the food order. Wine? That would be nice." I settled into the living room where Lucas was arranging his science fair materials on the coffee table. His certificate lay beside his project notebook and a small trophy from the regional competition. "Tell me more about how your filtration system works," I said, genuinely curious. Lucas's face brightened for the first time all evening. "Well, see, the solar panel powers this small pump, and the water goes through 3 different filters: sand, charcoal, and this special membrane that catches really tiny stuff." "Brilliant. Where did you get the idea?" "Remember when we watched that documentary about kids in Africa who had to walk miles for clean water? You said it wasn't fair that geography determined whether someone could have something as basic as safe drinking water." I did remember. We'd been having one of our weekend movie afternoons, just the 2 of us. Lucas had asked so many questions afterward that we'd ended up researching water purification methods on my laptop for 2 hours. "So you decided to do something about it," I said softly. "I wanted to build something that could actually help." His voice dropped. "Not just win prizes." There was something in his tone, a heaviness that didn't belong in an 11-year-old's voice. Before I could ask about it, Tom appeared with a glass of white wine. "Here you go, Mom. Jessica will be right out. She's just finishing up some paperwork for tomorrow's appointments." Paperwork on a Thursday night? Jessica worked part-time showing houses, and most real estate appointments happened on weekends, but I took the wine and smiled. "No rush. Lucas and I are having a fascinating conversation about water purification." Tom sat down across from us, his own wine glass already half empty. He kept glancing toward the kitchen, then back at me, like he was waiting for something. "Dad?" Lucas's voice was quiet. "Could you go check if Mom needs help with the food order?" Tom hesitated. "She's fine, buddy. Why don't you tell Grandma about your next science project?" "Actually," Lucas said, standing up suddenly, "I want to show Grandma my room. I've been working on some new experiments." "Maybe later, Lucas," Tom said quickly. "Grandma and Mom and I need to have some adult conversation after dinner." Lucas looked directly at me, and I saw something in his eyes that made my chest tighten. Fear, worry, and underneath that, a kind of desperate urgency. "I really want to show her now," he said, his voice stronger. "Before we eat, it'll just take a minute." "Lucas," Tom started. "It's fine," I interrupted, standing up. "I'd love to see what you're working on." As we walked toward the stairs, I heard Tom's footsteps behind us, then Jessica's voice from the kitchen. "Tom, is everything all right?" "Yeah, just Lucas wanted to show Mom his room." "Oh," a pause. "Well, don't be too long. The food will be here soon." Lucas's room was exactly what you'd expect from a kid fascinated by science. Chemistry sets, microscopes, books about engineering and physics scattered across his desk. But he didn't show me any of that. Instead, he closed the door and turned to face me, his young face serious in a way that reminded me painfully of Frank. "Grandma, I need to tell you something important, and I don't have much time." I knelt down to his eye level, the same way I used to when Tom was young and had something difficult to share. "What is it, sweetheart?" "Mom and Dad are going to try to make you sign papers tonight. After dinner, they think you're getting too old to take care of yourself." The words hit me like cold water, but I kept my expression calm. "What kind of papers?" "I don't know exactly, but I heard them talking about it for weeks. Mom keeps saying you have too much money for someone living alone, and that it's dangerous because you might make bad decisions or get tricked by scammers." My hands went cold, but my voice stayed steady. "What else did you hear?" "Dad doesn't want to do it. He keeps saying it feels wrong, but Mom says it's for your own protection. She says if something happened to you, they'd never forgive themselves for not stepping in." Lucas's eyes filled with tears. "But Grandma, you're not confused or forgetful. You're the smartest person I know." I pulled him into a hug, feeling his small body trembling against mine. Lucas, listen to me very carefully. You did exactly the right thing telling me this, but we need to keep it our secret for now, okay? Are you going to sign the papers? No, sweetheart, I'm not going to sign anything tonight. But what if they get mad at you? What if they get mad at me for telling? I held him at arm's length so he could see my face. Nothing they do or say will ever change how much I love you. And I promise you, I'm going to handle this. But I need you to go back downstairs and act normal. Can you do that for me? He nodded, wiping his nose with his sleeve. Will you still be able to come see me? The question broke my heart. Lucas, I will always find a way to be part of your life. Always. Do you believe me? Yes. Good. Now let's go back downstairs before they come looking for us. As we walked back to the living room, my mind was already working. Tom and Jessica had planned this evening carefully. The science fair celebration was just cover for something much more calculated. They'd researched legal procedures for taking control of an elderly person's finances. They'd prepared documents. They'd choreographed this entire evening to soften me up before asking me to sign away my independence. But they'd made one crucial mistake. They'd underestimated their 11-year-old son's sense of right and wrong. And they definitely underestimated his grandmother's ability to turn their own plan against them. When we returned to the living room, Jessica was setting out cloth napkins and actual wine glasses instead of the paper products they usually used for family dinners. She'd even lit candles. This wasn't just a celebration meal, it was a production. Perfect timing, she said brightly. The food should be here any minute. How are those experiments coming along, Lucas? Good, Lucas replied, his voice carefully neutral. He'd settled back at the coffee table with his science materials, but I noticed his hands shaking slightly as he organized his papers. Tom poured himself more wine, his third glass since I'd arrived, and we hadn't even eaten yet. Dutch courage, Frank would have called it. So, Helen, Jessica began, perching on the edge of the sofa with her own wine. Tom and I have been having the most interesting conversations lately about family security, making sure everyone's protected and taken care of properly. Here we go. I took a small sip of wine and waited. It's just that, well, you know how much we worry about you in that big house all by yourself. And after what happened to Tom's Aunt Ruth. What happened to Aunt Ruth? I asked. Tom had never mentioned any problems with his father's sister. Tom cleared his throat. Well, she had some issues toward the end, got confused about her finances, nearly got scammed by one of those phone calls about her computer being infected. If her neighbor hadn't intervened, I thought Ruth died of a heart attack at 73, I said. Last I heard, she was sharp as a tack right up until the end. Jessica and Tom exchanged a quick glance. Well, yes, but there were signs, Jessica continued smoothly. Little things. Forgetting appointments, mixing up dates. The family just wished they'd stepped in sooner to help her manage things. Complete fabrication. Ruth had been handling her own affairs perfectly well until the day she died. I'd talked to her just 2 months before her heart attack, and she'd been complaining about Tom never calling. That's interesting, I said. What kind of help do you think she needed? Oh, you know, just someone to help with the complicated stuff. Banking, investments, medical decisions. These days there are so many scams targeting older people, so much paperwork to keep track of. The doorbell rang, saving me from having to respond immediately. Tom jumped up to get the food, and Jessica continued her sales pitch. The thing is, Helen, we've been researching options for families in situations like ours, ways to make sure everyone's protected without anyone feeling like they're losing their independence. She reached for a manila folder that had been sitting on the side table. I hadn't noticed it earlier, but now I realized it had probably been there all evening, waiting for this moment. We found this wonderful service that helps families share financial responsibilities. It's becoming very popular with people our age who want to make sure their parents are protected. Tom returned with pizza boxes, but instead of unpacking them immediately, he sat down next to Jessica. They were positioned across from me now, a united front. Mom, we know this might seem sudden, but we've put a lot of thought into this, Tom said, The last thing we want is for you to worry about managing everything alone. Jessica opened the folder and pulled out several official-looking documents. These are just basic power of attorney forms. They would let Tom and me help with banking and bill paying, but you'd still be in complete control of all the major decisions. I looked at the papers without touching them. The top document was titled Durable Power of Attorney for Financial Management. Below that, I could see the edges of other forms. Healthcare directives, something that looked like guardianship paperwork. This seems like quite a bit more than helping with bills, I observed. Well, yes, it's comprehensive, Jessica said quickly. But that's good, right? Better to have everything covered in one set of documents instead of having to do more paperwork later. Later. When I was actually incapacitated, she meant. When I wouldn't be able to refuse. What exactly would these papers allow you to do? I asked. Tom shifted uncomfortably. Just basic stuff, Mom. Paying bills, talking to doctors if you were ever in the hospital, making sure your investments were being handled properly. And if I wanted to make a large purchase or change my will, well, Jessica said, we definitely want to discuss those kinds of decisions together. As a family, make sure you weren't being pressured by anyone or making choices you might regret later. There it was, the trap laid out clearly. They wanted legal control over my money, my medical care, and my property, and they wanted me to hand it over voluntarily, convinced that I was protecting myself. Have you consulted with a lawyer about these documents? I asked. Oh yes, Jessica said immediately. We wanted to make sure everything was done properly. Our attorney said these are standard forms that lots of families use. Their attorney. They'd paid for legal advice on how to steal my independence. This wasn't a spur-of-the-moment decision or even a recent idea. This was a calculated plan that had been in development for weeks, maybe months. I looked at Lucas, who was pretending to read his science notebook, but obviously listening to every word. His face was pale, and he kept glancing between his parents and me with an expression that broke my heart. This is a lot to take in, I said finally. I'd need time to think about it. Of course, Tom said, relief evident in his voice. Take all the time you need. But Jessica leaned forward, her smile a little more strained. Though Helen, our attorney, did mention that it's better to handle these things sooner rather than later, before any issues arise that might complicate the process. Before I became genuinely incapacitated and they'd have to go through the courts to get what they wanted. Before they had to prove I was actually incompetent instead of just convincing me to sign documents while I was still legally capable. What kind of issues? I asked innocently. Oh, just the normal things that happen as we get older. Memory problems, confusion about finances, that sort of thing. If we wait too long, the courts might have to get involved, and that's so much more complicated for everyone. Courts, legal proceedings, public scrutiny of their motives. That's what they were trying to avoid. I see, I said. And you've thought this through completely? Both of you? Tom nodded, but his hands were clenched in his lap. We just want what's best for you, Mom. And what's best for our family, Jessica added, making sure Lucas has the security he deserves, that we can all help each other without worrying about bureaucracy getting in the way. Lucas. They were using their own son as justification for stealing from his grandmother. The grandson who'd risked their anger to warn me about this exact conversation. Well, I said, setting down my wine glass, this has been very enlightening. These documents look quite comprehensive. I think I need to take them home and review them carefully with my reading glasses. My eyes aren't what they used to be for fine print. Jessica's smile tightened slightly. Oh, I could read through them with you right now. Help explain anything that seems confusing. That's sweet of you, but I really need my good glasses for legal documents. And honestly, all this talk about finances has given me a bit of a headache. I touched my temple lightly. Would you mind terribly if I took the pizza to go? I think I need to lie down with an ice pack. The effect was immediate. This was exactly what they'd been hoping for. Signs that I was becoming frail, easily overwhelmed by complex decisions. Of course, Helen, Tom said, jumping up with obvious relief. Let me get you a to-go container. Are you sure you'll be okay driving? Jessica asked, her voice dripping with false concern. Maybe Tom should follow you home. just to make sure you get there safely. I'll be fine, I said firmly. It's just a headache, not a medical emergency. But I let them fuss over me as Tom packed up pizza slices and Jessica gathered the legal documents into a neat stack. They were practically vibrating with satisfaction, thinking their confused, overwhelmed elderly mother was taking their trap home to sign in private. Take your time reviewing everything, Jessica said, pressing the folder into my hands. But don't wait too long. Our attorney said it's really better to handle these things promptly. Their attorney, still pushing urgency, still trying to rush me into signing before I could think clearly or get independent advice. I understand, I said, giving Lucas one last hug. Be good for your parents, sweetheart. He squeezed me tight, and I felt him slip something small into my coat pocket. I will, Grandma. I love you. I love you too. 20 minutes later, I sat in my kitchen with the legal documents spread across the table. What Lucas had slipped into my pocket was a folded piece of paper with a message written in his careful handwriting. Grandma, they said if you don't sign tomorrow, they're going to tell everyone you're getting dementia. Mom has been calling your friends. I love you. Line is Lucas. Smart boy. He'd warned me about their next move, a character assassination campaign, if I refused to cooperate. Jessica calling my friends to plant seeds of doubt about my mental state. That information was invaluable. I reached for my phone and dialed Patricia Mills. 27 years of friendship meant she'd take my call at 9:30 p.m. Helen, is everything all right? Patricia, I need legal help. Tom and Jessica want me to sign power of attorney documents. They've been planning this for weeks. Bring those documents tomorrow morning. I'll clear my schedule. Next, I called Richard Blake, my banker. Richard, has anyone been asking about my accounts recently? Actually, yes. Your son came in 2 weeks ago asking about managing a parent's finances. 2 weeks ago. While I was completely unaware they were researching how to steal my independence. I want security flags on all my accounts immediately. No access without my direct authorization. Consider it done. As I reviewed their documents, I found something that made my blood run cold. Buried in the stack was a petition for emergency guardianship with my name as the allegedly incapacitated person. They weren't just asking me to sign over control. They were preparing to have me declared legally incompetent whether I agreed or not. The phone rang. Tom's name on the caller ID. Hi, Mom. How are you feeling? Do those documents make sense? I know legal language can be confusing, always pushing the narrative that I was becoming incompetent. Actually, Tom, what's this guardianship petition for? Silence. Then, that's just precautionary, in case of medical emergencies. Another lie. I'm reviewing everything with my attorney tomorrow. Your attorney? Mom, that seems unnecessary. Lawyers just complicate family matters. After I hung up, the truth hit me. If I refused to sign, they'd file that guardianship petition. They could claim I was paranoid, refusing reasonable help, making irrational decisions. Tom and Jessica weren't just trying to steal my money. They were prepared to destroy my independence and my relationship with Lucas to get what they wanted. Tomorrow, I'd start building my defense. But tonight, I realized I was still underestimating just how far they were willing to go. Friday morning at 9 a.m., Jessica called. Helen, how are you feeling today? Any better? Much better, thank you. Wonderful. So you've had time to review those documents? Tom and I are hoping to get everything finalized today. Actually, Jessica, I've decided not to sign them. The silence stretched so long, I thought the call had dropped. When she spoke again, her voice was completely different. Cold. Calculating. Helen, I don't think you understand the situation. You're 71 years old, living alone, making poor decisions. Yesterday you could barely understand simple legal documents. I understood them perfectly. That's why I'm not signing. This isn't a request anymore. Jessica's mask had completely slipped. We've already filed the guardianship petition. Dr. Brennan will be evaluating you Monday morning, and he's going to find exactly what we need him to find. My blood went cold. What do you mean? I mean, Dr. Brennan is a friend of mine from my real estate networking group, and he understands that sometimes elderly people need protection from themselves, whether they want it or not. A corrupt doctor. They'd arranged for fraudulent medical testimony, and if you try to fight this, I'll make sure you never see Lucas again. I'll move us across the country if I have to. That boy will grow up thinking his grandmother abandoned him. The threat made my chest tighten with panic. Lucas, my heart. Jessica, you have until Sunday to sign those papers voluntarily. If you don't, Monday you'll be declared incompetent and will get everything anyway. But at least this way, you can pretend you had a choice. The line went dead. I sat staring at the phone, finally seeing Jessica for what she really was. Not just greedy, truly evil. She was willing to destroy a child's relationship with his grandmother, corrupt medical professionals, and steal an elderly woman's entire life savings. And she'd planned it all with the cold precision of a sociopath. Tom called an hour later, his voice shaking. "Mom, Jessica told me what she said to you. I had no idea she knew that doctor or was planning any of this." "You didn't know about Dr. Brennan?" "She just said she'd found someone who could do an evaluation. I thought it would be legitimate." His voice cracked. "Mom, I never wanted it to go this far. Tom, your wife just threatened to steal your son away from his grandmother forever. Are you going to let her do that?" "I don't know what to do, Mom. She says if I don't support her on this, she'll divorce me and take Lucas anyway. I can't lose my son, my weak, frightened boy." Jessica had trapped him too. "Then we need to stop her," I said quietly. "Together." But as I hung up, I wondered if Tom had the courage to stand up to the woman who'd been manipulating him for years. Jessica's plan seemed almost airtight. I had until Sunday to figure out how to stop her. Saturday afternoon, my doorbell rang. Lucas stood on my porch, his bike lying on the front lawn, his face flushed from riding hard. "Grandma, I need to show you something important." I led him into the kitchen and poured him a glass of water. His hands were shaking as he pulled out his phone. "I recorded Mom yesterday after she called you. I was supposed to be at soccer practice, but Coach canceled and I came home early. She was in the kitchen on the phone and she didn't hear me come in." He pressed play and Jessica's voice filled my kitchen, clear and damning. "The old bat refused to sign, but don't worry, Dr. Brennan will declare her incompetent Monday morning. I promised him that listing for the waterfront property if he cooperates. He'll say whatever we need him to say." My hands went cold. Bribery, corruption, all in Jessica's own voice. "She doesn't know I heard," Lucas whispered. "When she saw me, I pretended I'd just gotten home." "Lucas, this recording, this could change everything." His eyes brightened with hope. "Really?" "There's more," he said, scrolling through his phone with growing confidence. "I've been recording her for weeks, ever since that night at our house. All the things she says about you when Dad's not around." Another recording played. "Helen Richardson is sitting on millions while we're struggling with bills. That money should be ours. Lucas deserves a grandmother who actually cares about his future instead of hoarding wealth like some selfish old miser." The cruelty in her voice made me wince. This was how Jessica really talked about me when no one else could hear. "And this one's from last week," Lucas said, his voice getting stronger as he realized how important his evidence was. Jessica's voice again. "Tom's too weak to handle his own mother. He keeps saying he feels guilty, but someone has to protect this family's interests. I'll have to do it myself if he won't step up." "She's been planning this forever, hasn't she?" Lucas asked, looking up at me with eyes too old for his 11 years. "Yes, sweetheart. She has. I want to help you stop her, Grandma. What she's doing isn't right." I knelt down to his level, the same way I had in his bedroom that first night. "Lucas, are you absolutely sure about this? If we use these recordings, your mother will know you're the one who exposed her. She might never forgive you." He straightened his shoulders, and for a moment I saw not my little grandson, but the man he would become someday. "She's the one who betrayed our family first. She was going to take you away from me forever. It might change everything between you and your parents." "Good," he said firmly. "Maybe Dad will finally see who she really is." I pulled him into a fierce hug, feeling the weight of his courage and the pain of what this would cost him. "You're the bravest person I know, Lucas Richardson. I learned it from you," he said simply. Sunday morning, I called Patricia. "We need an emergency hearing tomorrow. And Patricia, we have evidence that's going to blow this case wide open." As I hung up the phone, I looked at Lucas, who was carefully saving his recordings to a backup file, methodical and determined. Tomorrow, we'd find out if an 11-year-old boy's courage was enough to stop his mother's greed. Monday morning at the courthouse, Patricia introduced Lucas to Judge Martinez. "Your Honor, this young man has evidence that will completely change this case." Jessica sat across the courtroom with her attorney, looking confident. She dressed conservatively, playing the concerned daughter-in-law, trying to protect her elderly mother-in-law. Tom sat beside her, but I noticed he wouldn't meet my eyes. "Your Honor," Jessica's lawyer began, "we're here because Mrs. Richardson's family is genuinely concerned about her declining mental state. She's becoming paranoid, refusing reasonable help, and making erratic decisions about her finances." Judge Martinez nodded. "I'll hear from the petitioners first, then Mrs. Richardson can present her defense." Dr. Brennan took the stand, wearing his professional demeanor like armor. "Based on my preliminary assessment, Mrs. Richardson shows signs of age-related cognitive decline. She's suspicious of family members trying to help her, which is common in early-stage dementia." "Have you actually examined Mrs. Richardson, doctor?" Judge Martinez asked. "Well, no, but her family's reports indicate clear patterns of confusion and poor judgment." Patricia stood up. "Your Honor, I'd like to play some recordings that directly contradict Dr. Brennan's testimony." The first recording filled the courtroom. Jessica's voice promising Dr. Brennan the waterfront property listing in exchange for declaring me incompetent. Dr. Brennan's face went white. Jessica's lawyer whispered urgently in her ear. "Your Honor," Patricia continued, "we have additional recordings that show this entire guardianship petition is based on fraud and greed, not genuine concern for Mrs. Richardson's welfare." The second recording played. Jessica calling me a selfish old miser and talking about the millions she believed she deserved. I watched Jessica's mask crumble in real time. Her composed expression twisted into something ugly as she realized her own words were destroying her. "Where did you get these?" Jessica demanded, standing up despite her lawyer's attempts to quiet her. "Your son recorded them," I said quietly. Jessica spun around to stare at Lucas, who was sitting in the front row behind me. "You little traitor. After everything I've done for you." "Mrs. Richardson," Judge Martinez said sharply, "please control yourself." But Jessica was beyond control now. "You have no idea what it's like supporting a family while she sits on millions. Lucas deserves better than scraps from his grandmother's table." "Jessica, stop talking," her lawyer hissed. "No, I'm tired of pretending. She's a selfish old woman who—" "That's enough." Judge Martinez's voice cut through the courtroom like a blade. "Dr. Brennan, you're dismissed. I'm referring this matter to the medical board for investigation." Dr. Brennan fled the courtroom. "As for this guardianship petition, it's dismissed immediately. Mrs. Richardson, you're clearly competent to manage your own affairs. Mrs. Jessica Richardson, you'll be hearing from the district attorney's office regarding charges of conspiracy and attempted fraud." Jessica's lawyer was already packing his briefcase, distancing himself from his client's meltdown. Outside the courthouse, Tom finally approached me. "Mom, I'm so sorry. I should have stopped this weeks ago." "Why didn't you?" "Because I was scared. Scared of losing Lucas if I stood up to her. Scared of being alone." He looked broken. "I let fear make me weak. What happens now? I'm filing for divorce, and I'm going to fight for custody of Lucas." "After what happened in there, after those recordings," Tom shook his head. "A judge will see that Jessica isn't fit to raise our son." Tom's voice grew stronger. "I want to be the father he deserves, and the son you raised me to be." Lucas ran over and hugged both of us. "Is it really over?" "It's over," I said. "You did it, sweetheart." 6 months later, Jessica had pled guilty to fraud charges and received 18 months probation. Dr. Brennan lost his medical license. Tom had won full custody of Lucas, and they'd moved into a small apartment across town. For the first time in years, my son seemed to be finding his backbone. Every weekend, Lucas came over to work on science projects. Yesterday, while helping me plant new roses in Frank's garden, he said, "Grandma, I'm glad we're a team." "Me too, sweetheart, me too." So, that's my story. I'd love to hear what you think. Should Tom have stood up to Jessica from the beginning, or do you understand why he was too scared to protect his own mother? Let me know in the comments and subscribe for more stories like mine.